I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into soul fusion healing, integrating mind, body, and soul with a terrific author. His name is Marvin L Wilkerson. This profound guide blends ancient wisdom with modern, spiritual, and psychological insight, offering readers a path to heal trauma, awaken their higher self, and achieve true inner harmony. Whether you're seeking deep spiritual growth or a holistic approach to mental clarity, this book is your compass to total transformation. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Marvin, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, it's my pleasure, Logan. I appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure to have you on the show. This is such a unique book, very insightful. Talk to us a little bit about the concept of soul fragmentation and how it manifests in everyday life.
When we leave our authentic self, we're fragmenting. And that comes in a multitude of ways. I was first introduced into this fragmentation concept by William Baldwin in a book that I thought was more spiritual than it was into the whole process of regressions and all of that. But fragmentation can be something as difficult as bipolar, multiple personalities, and it can also be just as simple as depression, anything that takes us away from who we naturally are. Anxieties, trauma, all of those things cause fragmentation. And so this is it's a pretty important concept when you think about it, because it takes us away from who we truly are. So if self-realization is the ultimate goal for every human being, well, then you have to put all of these pieces of yourself together to be self-realized.
Absolutely. So basically, you're saying parts of us that shouldn't be there, anxiety, depression, sadness, maybe trauma, uh, takes its toll on our soul and fragments it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about healing.
Yeah.
So anything that is imbalanced in your life, you're fragmenting away from. I mean, so many people can be in repression or suppression. These are all parts of a person that is not being seen. So obviously, one of the things to heal yourself is just be who you are, no matter what. I tell clients, don't hide yourself, expose yourself.
Right.
That way, your vulnerability and you get loved for who you are instead of who you want them to think you are.
Right. Talk to us
I
a
want to
little
be
bit.
loved for all my warts and all, right?
Exactly. Talk to us a little bit about soul fusion and what you mean by that.
Well, in other words, the higher we move into frequency, vibration, and into our energy, we're beginning the journey towards pulling a lot of this fragmentation together. When we put more emphasis on our feelings and our subconscious mind and take it out of the conscious mind, where we're moving into a higher sense of frequency where we can get closer to the universal consciousness, which we all possess at every moment in time. And so it's very important for mindfulness and meditation, all the new buzzwords of things we should be doing, to heal ourselves or heal that fragmented parts of ourselves to become more authentically us.
How can readers reconnect with their higher self and achieve spiritual alignment?
Well, I mean, see, that was one of the things that has always intrigued me was spirituality and psychology and philosophy. That's where I got started out in the beginning. And, so many people, I just had a client the other day that she uses anger uh, to the extreme and then wants me to come in and heal her from anger. I said, well, we've got to get an understanding of the philosophy of why you're using anger
Right.
to protect yourself. And so when we fall into the um, place of continually sabotaging who we would choose to be versus how we respond to life and react to life, well, then that's where the fragmentation will come in. This is where we lose our sense of balance and a sense of who we really truly are. And we need to understand philosophically our beliefs of why we choose to do what we do. So if you want to change, you have to change the belief because there's a belief behind every single thing you do and every single thing that you act out. So if you want to change your life, change your belief.
Right. Absolutely. What you think is what you do, what you become, no doubt. And also, you have to really want to change. I mean, this woman seems like she was using anger as a tool, and anger can be a very effective tool. You don't dare question the boss. You don't dare question your wife. She doesn't dare question you because of the reaction you might have. But if you want to be your authentic self, you need to shed that tool, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, what's the point? In other words, anger is an emotion.
Hmm.
This is a feeling that is out of balance in yourself. In other words, there's a difference between your thinking mind and your heart, your feelings. And then when that difference creates this imbalance, then your thinking mind your ego wants to reject anybody else's ideas or thoughts or beliefs to because it's self-protection. So you're trying to self-protect what? Your vulnerability. And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, emotions are always coming out of the past unless you're using them in the present for the positive, like love and beauty and positive things. I mean, that's the kind of what I call the gift of spirit is that we have emotions. We have an opportunity to look out in the world and see the love and the beauty and the kindness and the wonderfulness that this dimension has to offer. But when you're using emotion, that means there's an anxiety around the past that you're now using to protect yourself from experiencing that same experience. And we know as hypnotists that 95% of your conflict was created before the age of 7 through conditioning and programming. And so it delves into a depth of who you are and what you're doing when you start using emotions and taking yourself out of the present. And the present is just simply using feelings, which is moment to moment value.
Absolutely. You integrate ancient wisdom with modern psychology in your book. Give us an example of that, or tell us how that works and why you think the two blend together well in creating a path forward for folks.
I have been a quote collector for over 50 years, and I've collected quotes from so many different higher minds, enlightened people. Um, and when I tell people when I say this is a universal truth, they say, well, where do you get those? I said, well, the first place to get it's nature, because it's true.
Yeah.
Man hasn't got his grubby hands on it.
Yeah.
But we've got so many enlightened beings that have espoused truths that they tend to brush off or just hone in on just one. I like to go back to probably one of my favorite quotes comes from Lao Tzu, which said, "Let reality be reality." And this is a man that was 500 years before Christ. And so I use Christ, I use Buddha, I use all the great minds. We have them today. So we have great minds that have espoused universal truths throughout our history. And I think that sometimes people don't look at get the beliefs and understanding from these great minds and these enlightened beings to where they can now use them. And I'll use the favorite expression of one of my teachers: walk the talk or throw it away.
Yeah. Exactly. And what would that mean, though, exactly? Walk the talk, but throw it away.
Well, in other words,
Make it your own.
beliefs is philosophy of universal concepts of honoring our maker, the one. There's only one, and that universal connection is within you, is within us all, for to easily tap into. And when you hear truths from people down through history, it kind of forces, and this is why I put it in the book, it kind of forces you to think for yourself. And that's where I got started, was with Krishnamurti, reading the book Think on These Things. And I could read, it was so complicated, I could read about 2 pages at a time before I had to stop and think about it for like a week before I'd pick it back up. So, if we all would think in terms of truths that are expounded 2,000 years, 1,500 years, 500 years, they all sound the same. They're all saying the same thing. When I studied, I did about 10 years worth of studies on Native American Indians and medicine wheels. It all says the same thing. I don't care where it comes from. It's saying the same thing. And if we would just listen to some of those things, we might change our beliefs about how we are conditioned and programmed, which is where the problem always begins.
Which most of that conditioning and programming happens when we're infants, right? When we're children.
Before the age of 7.
Yeah. And it's tough to rewrite those scripts, right? It's kind of ingrained in there. It's like a reflex.
Well, I tell people, look, when you're 20 years old, your job for the rest of your life is to evaluate the values of what you were programmed with and decide if that aligns with you.
Right.
And if it don't align with you, well, then what does align with you? And that's your truth. And that's when you can start walking in your own light, your own power, and you can decide if something feels right or if it feels wrong.
Absolutely.
Which is always advice. That's always the final arbiter.
Yeah. You spend those 18 years growing up under your parents' tutelage, and then sometimes you spend the next 18 years or more trying to undo what they did. And then sometimes you need to, right?
Logan, you spend the rest of your whole life confronting that conditioning and programming.
Exactly.
Where did I learn this? Where did I get this concept? Where did this idea come up in me?
It feels innate, but it's not innate. It was a value that was passed to you by your parents, good or bad, unfortunately, because we are malleable at that age, like you said. Let's give the folks at home an overview of your book, how it's structured, how they can use it to live a more self-actualized life.
Well, the important thing for me when I started writing the book was to help people understand the power of the mind. The mind is everything. There's only everything in life is mental. This is a 30,000-year-old Hermetic principle. All is mind. And so when we come into trying to understand living in the now, which is a great Eckhart Tolle book, we have to understand that we create life. As a co-creator, what are we creating and why are we creating? And so when you understand the mind is creating everything in your life, well, then you have to take responsibility for what you create, which then can hone you and give you an objectivity on what your belief and how you're acting and how you're responding to life. Yeah. So I wanted to put the mind. Then I've been an astrologer for almost 50 years, and the universe is three things: it's energy, frequency, and vibration. There is nothing else. And so when you understand energy, now you understand how to operate within the context of how that energy, which is pure, energy is pure. And so you're the one that's using it and using it for whatever you choose it to use it for. I mean, is it good? Is it a struggle? Is it bad? Is it so forth? And so I wanted to give people an understanding of energy, including the philosophy and the mind. And then I wanted to move into understanding the three levels of consciousness. One of the things that Milton Erickson in the 1950s spent a lot of time on with his hypnotic clients was trying to get you to understand the difference, the two mind concept, the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Conscious mind is 5% of your reality. Subconscious mind is 95% of your reality and doesn't use words. And so trying to help people to understand using feelings as your arbiter to evaluate life, because it's your gut brain where all the nerves are, and how you respond to life is all how the body responds. And when the body responds, the subconscious mind responds to protect you. And that protection mechanism might not be at your joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What type of protection mechanisms do you feel we have?
Well, when you're using the ego structure to protect you, well, that's the one that's predominantly used, and it's always trying to make others wrong and you right. So you can't be wrong if you're wrong, because it's trying to protect you for survival. And so when you're trying to use the thinking mind as a survival mechanism, or the ego to self-protect you, well, then that's when we get into all kinds of distorted ways of responding to life. In other words, you can't do what Lazu said, let reality be reality, when the ego structure is trying to make others wrong and you right. And so that's part of the deal, is to try to understand that you have to use feelings. Feelings are the only truth. So you have two truths in life: feelings and emotions. If it's a good emotion, great. It's what they're for. If it's a bad emotion, you're using the past. But feelings are all moment to moment. So how does something make you feel? If it feels good, well, then you're happy. If the mind says something, your body reacts. it's a somatic response, which now the subconscious mind reads that and reacts. So feelings, when you get a thought, you run it down to your gut and said, how does that feel? If it feels good, well, then you're in cahoots. If it don't feel good, well, you reject this. You don't reject your feelings. And so feelings are the final arbiter, and that's moment to moment. And through feelings, you move into a higher vibration. You move in a much more natural response to life. And that's a huge, huge lesson for people.
And feelings are neither right nor wrong. It's basically your feedback to a situation, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, so, it's like what I tell people, discernment and discrimination. Discern who you're with. Discern the energy. If you like the energy, well, you do business with them. If you don't like the energy, well, then you discriminate. You're not put on this world to get along with everyone for every reason. Yeah. So you use feelings, and you determine if you want to participate. And if you want to participate, great. If you don't want to participate, well, then choose how you want to experience the person and the energy.
Exactly. What exercises or practices would you recommend for readers who are struggling with past trauma?
Well, anytime that you use an anxiety, if you think about it and start thinking about, where did this come from? What is this coming from? You will always get an answer. Always. And so you think about that conditioning and programming, and you think about what's going on and why you're using this anxiousness or this emotion, and you have to decide, I don't want to respond like that. So if you take responsibility for everything that happens in your life, you got only one question: what is it teaching me, and how did I create it? Or why did I create it? Then you start making corrections in your life, and you start unpeeling the layers of onion as life moves forward.
Yep. Very, very good advice. Now, the world we live in today is filled with distraction, so many digital distractions, of course, disconnection. I think we're more disconnected than ever before. Go knock on somebody's door, which was routine, when you and I were growing up. Today, I don't know what would happen.
But can I borrow some sugar?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, people would borrow, a cup of sugar or a cup of flour or something like that. Now, today, if you didn't text before you called and then, arranged on somebody's planner electronically. But anyway, we have this distracted and disconnected society. How do we start to realign the mind, the body, and the soul?
Well, what I have to do is I have to stop reading the news. Yeah. I have to stop listening to politics. Mm-hmm. I have to start, I read a book back in the mid-70s, Starseed Transmissions, and the guy went out in the woods and lived in nature for 5 years, and it was just so cleansing and pure to get away from the social constructs. But when you have to realize that, like David Hawkins talked about, this world has every single aspect to offer people to heal. And so whatever you need to heal, that's what the world is going to offer. And if you don't need to experience that, well, then you won't experience it. So I say, my formula for life is live your excitement, take it to the end, and let go of the outcome, because you're not in charge. Yeah. I get people with eyeballs get big as saucers when I'm saying you do nothing. The subconscious does it.
Yeah.
The subconscious creates 95% of your reality. So live in the moment and stop with the judgments and expectations.
Yeah. It's all an expectations game, right? If your expectations
Yeah.
are low, you're likely to have those expectations exceeded. And if your expectations are high, they'll probably never reach the mark that you were hoping to reach.
Well, and what I tell people is, look, spirit can give you more than you can ask for.
Yeah.
Because what you're going to ask for is going to be limited to your ego structure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you let spirit run your life, choose for you, well, your life could be bigger than you could ever possibly have fathomed.
Yeah, I agree. What role does self-awareness play in the healing journey that you outline in your book?
Well, you have to be self-aware, and it comes a lot into not just self-awareness, but self-image. Who do you see yourself to be? Who do you see yourself who you want to be? And becoming self-aware is following your feelings, following your emotions, following your vulnerabilities, and understanding where they come from, why you have them, and why are you using them. I mean, this really is a short journey. So make the most of your opportunity in this journey. And it's really interesting. I listen to so much stuff. I mean, from intuitions and psychics and spirituality and all of that. All of that concept can go extraordinarily deep, but it never breaks down to nothing more than just keep it simple. It's always simple. The greatest truths are always simple. Let reality be reality.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm in Tennessee with there's a lot of religious stuff, and one of my favorite stuff for them is what did Jesus say? Who did Jesus say you are?
Mm.
Ye are all gods.
Yeah.
And if you just start from that premise, then that will help you to shape your life, your beliefs, and how you respond to the world.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful reminder. We got about 2 minutes left. Let me just ask you this before you mention that you work with clients. Tell me a little bit about your practice, what you work on with people, and how you help them.
Well, astrologically, obviously, I study their astrology and their chart. Very first thing, I want to know the birthday, and that gives me insight into their soul's purpose in life, what they come in to accomplish. And then once I know that, then I can utilize what their confliction is as they're presenting conflict or presenting problem to now interface with how can I use hypnosis to get into the subconscious mind to heal the conflict, because that's where it's being held. And so I use the astrology and the hypnosis in a combination that helps me see what their true path is and what they're trying to attempt to do. And then where are they at on that part of the journey?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And
So
that becomes a real true healing tool.
wonderful. Sounds like a powerful method. And this book is a wonderful tool as well, folks. It is called Soul Fusion Healing, Integrating Mind, Body, and Soul. It is a profound guide that blends ancient wisdom with modern spiritual and psychological insight, offering readers a path to heal trauma, awaken their higher self, and achieve true inner harmony. Whether you're searching for deep spiritual growth or a holistic approach to mental clarity, this book is your compass to total transformation. Marvin, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, sir, your wisdom, and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.